My name is Sadie O'Leary.
My name is Haley March.
Our question is, how can elementary schools reduce and prevent food waste to increase food security and address climate change? For this project, my discipline was environmental scientist.
And my discipline was education. So, starting off with the introduction, preventing food waste is significantly needed to control climate change. Obviously, we all learned about climate change and we know how much it really affects our planet. So, preventing food waste is significantly needed to take action and control in climate change. And elementary schools play a huge role in the food waste. Article 27 in the UNCRC supports this claim by showing how families can produce a healthy and happy environment in the home. But elementary schools do play a huge role in food waste, and we need to figure out how to change that. So, our food recovery hierarchy, little picture behind underneath the introduction, share some ways that elementary schools and school systems in general can try to reduce that. So, our first tier um, talks about source reduction. So, reducing the volume of food generated is a huge way to control feeding hungry people, donating that extra food to food banks, soup kitchens, shelters, and even, the obvious of giving it to students who might not have that extra food, and could use a meal at home. Feeding animals is another huge way. Divert the food scraps to animal feed. It's something that can always be used. Industrial uses. So this can be providing waste oils for um, fuel compensation, things like that. Food scraps for digestion to recover energy. It can compose, creating a neutral, rich soil adamant. And our last option would be landfill, which is the last resort to disposal.
According to Benson in 2021, 90 billion pounds of edible food goes uneaten each year, which is about $372 per person. According to Earthshare, more than 18,000 pounds of waste is produced by the average sized elementary school in one year. And addressing the problem of food waste is also important because it helps increase food security by acknowledging families that could use the extra food. And some ways that schools can do this is by providing the extra food that goes uneaten to students who may need it, or doing things like providing free lunch for all.
And some action steps that we can take to control this is controlling the amount of food that is made for students per day is advised. Knowing how much food you put on there and knowing how much you take back is something that schools can lack because there's so many kids that they're feeding. But taking control of that amount of food and acknowledging how much waste is actually happening is the first step to kind of open their eyes a little bit. Some suggestions from the articles include donating extra food that is made, gathering the number of food purchased in school before making the lunches, using extra food for the industrial use, like we talked about, and the offer versus serve policy, which is a great policy that is not, offered a lot at schools, especially in elementary schools. So offering the food rather than, just giving the kid the food, let them pick what they're going to eat. Don't, throw broccoli on their plate if they're not going to eat it, they're just going to throw it away. So the offer versus serve policy is a great way to control the food waste.
Environmental scientists have done lots of research on ways that schools can reduce food waste. And one of the ways that they recommend is by conducting a food waste audit. And by conducting a food waste audit, it helps schools to learn about what foods go uneaten in the cafeterias. The audits also help schools figure out why the food is being thrown away and what specific changes they can make to help reduce the food waste. Environmental scientists also encourage schools to do things like involve their students in the menu planning so that they have a say on what they eat, making periods longer for students and um, making them 30 minutes instead of 20 or 15 minutes. And they also encourage schools to include the impacts of food waste into the curriculum.
And another great asset that comes out of extending lunch periods is they have time to eat, obviously, what they don't finish. But if they are full, like the kids can take the food home with them. Bring them if they bring a lunchbox and they know that they could use the food, they can always bring it home. So preparing lunch that they can eat as a snack or bringing home for, dinner time is a great way to prevent food waste. And it would also increase the food security at home. So those assets are great for the problem at hand. And integration, working together with school systems and environmental scientists would be a great way for elementary schools to reduce food waste. And it's so important for students to learn about. We talk about climate change in school. Ever since I was little, I remember climate change being a topic at school, yet schools are kind of doing the opposite by letting the food be wasted and not addressing and taking control of the food that is wasted. So having that conversation with the students, letting them know that food waste can contribute greatly to climate change is something that should happen. And environmental scientists can also help schools by providing them with solutions that are proven to help reduce food waste. And having, even environmental scientists come to school and share their input is a great, learning time. And it's a great way for kids to take action and try to limit the food that's wasted. And then we also have references here. So feel free to take a look at what we viewed. And we hope that you liked our presentation.